welcome to this new story. Before we dive into today's story, we want to give a brief content warning. This story contains intense and sensitive themes, including violence, black magic, and family conflict. Some listeners might find these topics distressing, so please exercise discretion while listening. In today's episode, you'll hear about a family torn apart by dark secrets and betrayals, where even the closest relationships are poisoned by deceit and supernatural influences. The story reveals a daughter's struggle to understand her father's decisions and the tragic outcomes of his choices. Thank you for joining us, and let's get into the story. I'm a teenager going to school, a girl with a heavy heart. My life went completely wrong from the moment I was born. My parents split up in a big fight. Dad wanted a divorce, and he wanted to have me. Mom had no one. She felt lonely and lost without me. At a certain point, she couldn't handle the sorrow anymore. She committed suicide, leaving Dad a widower. He might have won, you could say, but who lost? Me, of course. I was the big loser, because by doing so, he took away my mother. I was barely 2 years old when this happened, losing my mom. Years passed, Dad worked, and I stayed more with Grandma Rochelle, my father's mother. I always thought of Grandma Rochelle as a bad mother. She was always very hateful, strict, and mean to me. And I felt she partly caused my mom's death. When Dad wasn't home, Grandma Rochelle yelled at me for every little thing. She always seemed irritated with me. I could feel she didn't like me, and she often hit me for no reason. But when my father was around, she was always sweet as pie. Years passed since my mother's death. My father's parents, Grandpa Kishan and Grandma Rochelle, pressured him to marry someone else. My grandparents had already chosen a woman for him. According to them, she was suitable for him, and she would make him happy again. That lady's name was Joya, and she was unkind to me. I had hoped she would be a kind person and be good to me, but that wasn't the case at all. Shortly after my father married Joya, Grandpa and Grandma died in a car accident. It turned out that it was because of black magic from Joya. She wanted to get rid of anyone in her way. When Grandma Rochelle died, I was relieved and happy because my grandmother had caused a lot of misery and sorrow between my father and mother. Grandma Rochelle always incited my father against my mother. She was incredibly mean to my mother and did everything to make her life unbearable. Occasionally, my father told me about it because I was too young to experience these low things when my grandmother did them. That Joya had gotten rid of her now with her black magic was just her own karma. After all, it was my grandmother's own choice to bring Joya into the house. And it was precisely because of this girl that she lost her life. Joya not only got rid of my grandparents, but also got rid of my father with her black magic. He died under strange circumstances shortly after his parents' accident. This couldn't be a coincidence. She was clearly after the family's possessions. She literally went over bodies to achieve her goals. She was ruthless, cold-blooded, and I was afraid of her. You could see she was a mean person. There was still one uncle, a brother of my father, in my grandparents' house. Uncle Rakesh was a kind uncle, and he was an educated man who could talk fluently about all subjects. But he too was manipulated by Joya with black magic. Uncle Rakesh went crazy from one day to the next. He started wandering around the waterfront and slept there on the benches. I was left alone in the house with my mean stepmother, who didn't even care about me. One day, Joya suddenly brought her new boyfriend, Dinesh, into the house. Dinesh was terribly violent when Joya was not around. I told her afterwards what he tried with me, but she didn't believe me. According to her, I sucked everything out of my head and had a rich imagination. According to her Dinesh would never do something like that with me. She always kept a close eye on him, and according to her, he was an honorable, loyal guy. This gave Dinesh the freedom to do whatever he wanted to me. Joya didn't believe it when I tried to explain to her what that man was trying to do. In the end, Dinesh raped me more often, abused me, and touched me wherever he wanted. There was nothing I could do. Joya one day simply told me in full detail how she killed my father. Apparently, she took pleasure in seeing me sad. She said she had put a pile of dead people's ashes in my father's food, which had been processed by a Haitian. So that's how my father met his end. She had done this because she wanted my father's belongings. His life meant nothing to her. She did not regret her actions at all, she also added. Thank you for sharing the story. Here's the translation into English, with some textual adjustments for clarity and flow. She proudly recounted what she had done to Grandpa Kishan and Grandma Rochelle. I got them good. They deserved it. I had them killed by a Haitian hitman because they were not good people. Did you know that they used dark magic on your father so he would hate your mother? He treated your mom like dirt, causing her immense pain. She loved him so much, but he never treated her right, thanks to the black magic from your grandparents. Your Grandma Rochelle confessed this to me herself, so I didn't feel any remorse when I had them taken out. She didn't like your mom because she was worried your mom would take all the money. So, through black magic, she could control your dad and make him do whatever she wanted. One of those things was to make him treat your mom like dirt, which drove her to suicide because she couldn't take it anymore. And the final straw was when your father discarded your mom like a piece of trash. This caused her to take her own life because she was utterly broken by his behavior. And that's all because of your grandma, who didn't want your mom to inherit any money if something happened to your dad. Grandpa Kishan, he was a well-known con artist. Everyone knew him. He also mistreated your mom, constantly bullying her and making her life miserable in every possible way. I believed Joya because everything she said seemed to add up. Looking back, I remembered some things my father told me during his sad moments, and it all seemed like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. But I couldn't forget that Joya was the one who murdered my father. She could talk all she wanted about how terrible my grandparents were, but she was no better. She had killed my father for money and property, and she was proud of it. How could she think she was any better? My parents had been together for years, but when they got married, my dad's parents constantly fought with him until he was fed up, and he ended the marriage. Of course, this was also due to the black magic from Grandma Rochelle, as I mentioned earlier. My dad wasn't himself anymore because of the devilish forces my grandma used on him. Growing up as a kid, I always wondered why I didn't have a mom. I asked people around me why I didn't have a mom. When I learned that my father had left my mother, I wondered if he ever truly loved her. Why else would he leave her? Why would you cause your loved one so much pain and sadness that she takes her own life? I couldn't understand it. But later, it all became clear to me through what Joya said, and the evidence I found that showed my father had hired an expensive lawyer to take me away from my mother. My mom fought until the end to keep me, but it was a losing battle for her. And it was also a loss for me, because now I have lost both parents. I have no family, no siblings. I'm completely alone. I keep wondering why my father caused my mother so much pain, leading her to take her own life. Why, Dad? Why did you go so far? Couldn't you fight against the black magic? Couldn't you see something was wrong? Why did you take me away from Mom? Why did you do that to her? Couldn't you see that Grandma Rochelle was destroying your life and your family? Didn't you realize how much Mom cared about you and tried to keep her family together? Dad, I wish you were here. I'd show you how much I hurt Grandma Rochelle, so you'd understand how it feels to have your mother hurt you. Then you'd know what it's like when someone destroys your family. How could you be so cowardly, Dad? You said nothing when your mom was mean to me, when I wasn't allowed to wear nice clothes or buy or eat anything I wanted. You just watched like a zombie and said nothing when your mother treated me so badly. Why, Dad? You did nothing. You didn't stand up for me. Your only daughter, your only child, and you thought that was okay? I blame you, Dad. You knew how cruel your mother was, yet you took me to live with her, despite knowing that the doctor said I was too small, weak, and fragile. You still brought me to your mom. Why didn't you leave me with Mom? Why, Dad? Why did you do this to me? Dad, why didn't you just choose Mom and your family? Why did you still eat at Grandma Rochelle's house, even though you knew how she always talked bad about Mom? She was your great love and wife, wasn't she? You should have known that Grandma had bad intentions. I blame you for not using your brain to make smarter decisions. If you hadn't gone to Grandma's, she wouldn't have put black magic in your food. But no, you always put your mother first, and you forgot about your family. When Mom was pregnant with me, you neglected her and spent all your time at your mother's house. Why didn't you leave my mom's life earlier? Maybe then she wouldn't have had to take her own life. Maybe she would have moved on and continued living. Why did you wait? Why didn't you separate from Mom earlier? It would have been better if you had, because maybe my mom would still be alive. All my classmates still have both parents, and I have no one. Why did you do this to me? I'm your daughter. Wasn't it your duty as a father to protect and love me? I hope you can see from heaven or hell what I'm going through now. How I'm breaking inside. How empty and broken I feel. I hope you're happy with yourself, Dad, with the choices you made. Every time Joya's man abuses me, I bleed and I think of you. Because you took care of this. If you weren't so docile and allowed everything your mean parents told you, this wouldn't have had to happen. Then Mama would still be alive, and Joya would never be in our lives. Then you would still be alive too. But now, a strange man touches me. Now, I am damaged for the rest of my life. I have been raped countless times by a stranger, thanks to your stupid choices. Where are you as a father who should have protected me? If you were here, you would protect me. You would protect Mom, and you would give me a family. Like any other child, I wanted a normal life. But sadly, that will never happen for me. I don't want to live anymore because I don't see a future for myself. I can't keep living on this earth. I'll never have my own family because I'm afraid that a man will also abandon me, lie to me, throw me aside like garbage once he's done playing with me. Just like you did to Mom, despite her pleas and sleepless nights. I want to die so I can finally see my mom in the other world. Then she can finally hold me in her arms and tell me she cares about me and loves me. Because you took all of that away from me. The love I lacked my entire life, she could finally give me then. I yearn for the moment when my mom is finally with me. Then she can feed me from her own hands. I'm so broken. What should I do? I have so many questions that I ask myself every single day. Dad, I blame you. You have no idea how much I blame you. I'm desperate. Dad, give me answers. Why did you break up our family? Mom wasn't perfect, but if she was so bad, how did you manage to create me? Why did you always tell me she was a perfect person, yet you hurt her so much? You are far from perfect too, but Mom loved you so much that she couldn't see your faults because she loved you so much. Or you fell short. She willingly tried to fill the gaps. You told me so yourself. And yet, sigh, now I'm doubting whether I'm even your daughter. I'm ashamed of you. Dad, why did you have to flirt with Mom's best friend on the phone? How could you talk bad about Mom to her own friend? That friend is still alive, and she told me everything and showed me the messages you sent her. I looked through Mom's old files, and she tried so hard to keep her family together, but you destroyed everything with your lawyer. I saw documents from the court. You were determined to take me away from my mother. Why? Because now you're not even here for me. I'm left to fend for myself without you or Mom. You should have just left me with my mom and gone on with your life. None of this would have happened. You left my mom lonely and broken. Everything she loved, you took away from her. What did you gain from it? What you achieved was breaking the people who cared about you. Like Mom, I'm now alone. Every child comes from a mother and needs their mom's warmth. That's how God arranged it. But I never got that warmth because my antisocial dad wanted to play God. From my mom's diary, I could read that she admitted she wasn't perfect, but she tried to do everything as best as she could. And she always loved my father. He was the one who was always mean and nasty to her. So, when I die someday, I don't even want to meet my father in the afterlife. I want to see my mom, and I absolutely don't want to see my dad. Now, everyone walks with their parents, but I walk with my stepmother's boyfriend, who indulges his desires on me as if I belong to him. I don't want to live anymore. I'm going to join my mom very soon, and no one will ever see me again. Dad, I saw your brother at the riverside, who, thanks to your disbelief in black magic, has become a beggar. According to you, black magic was nonsense, and you believed nothing when people warned you. But look where your brother ended up. A beggar along the riverside because of the same black magic from Joya that you thought was nonsense and superstition. Are you proud of yourself, Dad? And now Joya's boyfriend, Dinesh, your own brother, sits at the riverside feeding him food scraps like a dog. They were laughing and mocking him. Dad, this is the life you chose for us. Dad, thanks to your disbelief. Dad, thanks to your stubbornness. Thanks to your foolish choices. If only you had listened to Mom, chosen your family, you would still be alive. Mom would still be alive too. You would have had a beautiful family and a loving daughter who would have loved you intensely. I'm bitter now, and I will never be able to forgive you or your parents. Dad, you really have yourself to blame. All you've left for me in this life is misery, sadness, and pain. If this was your goal, congratulations, Dad. You've achieved it. From my mom's diary, I read that something dark, a demonic entity, was following her. I visited a few shamans to try to get more information about it, to find out what it could be, but they couldn't find anything about it. Additionally, I also investigated to see if I could find more information about Grandma Rochelle. From one shaman, I learned that she was known for dabbling in occult practices. She wasn't a novice, and her whole life she practiced black magic, so she wasn't a good person. But I already knew that about Grandma Rochelle, and this man confirmed it for me without me telling him who she was. He also told me that my grandmother worshipped demonic entities, made offerings, and performed rituals in secret without the family's knowledge. Outwardly, my grandmother always portrayed herself as a church-going old lady, but I soon realized it was all just a performance. With these dark powers, Grandma Rochelle was able to destroy my parents' family. I'm very glad that Grandma Rochelle is dead now. Joya will get her punishment too, because she has the blood of 3 people on her hands. She wanted to play God, so her karma will eventually catch up with her. As soon as you use black magic to harm others, you eventually get your just desserts. Thank you for listening to this unsettling story. We understand that it may touch on sensitive topics, and we appreciate your time and attention. If you have comments or tips for the writer, we'd love to hear them in the comments section. Your feedback helps us improve our stories and address important issues. If this story has affected you in any way, and you feel like you need support or assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via email. We want to be there for our listeners, especially during difficult times. Your well-being is our priority. Thank you again for listening, and take care.